Hello, everyone. The DFS Down Under show is back for another exciting week of DFS chat. Smatho 10 is back again for the show, as always, joined by my good friend and contributor to the DFR site, Big Hef. How are you this evening?
I'm good, thanks, Smatho. I'm back down in Tassie. It was actually hotter here in Tassie than it was in Gold Coast last week. 28 degrees today. But got the proper NBN. Hopefully we don't drop out tonight because I want to hear about this top you've got on. You've got some baby blue number. What is going on there, Smatho?
Oh, look, shout out to my local rugby club here, the Taroona Penguins, also known as Taroona Blues. This is their wonderful 70th anniversary edition that I won in an auction a couple of years ago now. And yes, it's one of my personal favourites. So Hef, thanks for the old shout out to the Taroona Blues, and hopefully premiership successes again for the 2019 season. Now, Hef, it's been a really, really big, awesome week in world sport, in world politics, in current events and all that. But share me, what was the big highlight of your week last week?
Wow. Wet and Wild was the highlight of my weekend, Smatho. But when we talk about sport, I think it had to be Winks for me. I'm a racing man. A, Winks, like, she's just unreal. B, I don't have to listen to any of the mainstream media talk about her anymore because it gets a bit painful. But yeah, no, she's a ripper, Winks. So that was unreal. What was yours?
No, actually, highlight for Winks was the $2 payout on PointsBet. Did you see that?
Yep. I've got a WhatsApp combo full of mates who've taken the PointsBet promo to get Waller to cry and Winks to win, and they're really analysing. There's red eyes. Is there a tear there? Oh, he's got the sniffles. They were going berserk. I've never seen them so excited, but they paid out in the end. I hear. I don't know if he did cry. Did he cry?
No, I don't think he did cry. I think PointsBet had to backtrack like old Homer Simpson into the hedge and say, "Yeah, we might just have to pay this out." I reckon.
Yeah.
But the highlight for me in the last week was getting up. No, I actually didn't get up in the end. I actually stayed up and watched Paris-Roubaix, the cycling race over the cobblestones on Eurosport, because the old man was around watching it with me. And then when he went away, I stayed up 2 a.m. The Masters was on Monday morning, and it was sensational viewing watching the back nine here at Augusta Masters. So look, we'll touch on that a little bit later in the show in our little golf preview for this week. But let's get on with the show. Big show this week, Hef. And as always, let's start with Smatho's 2 thumbs up. Big results in the last week in the AFL, the DFS contest here on Draft Stars, and we went back to Thursday night when the old Sydney and Melbourne do battle, where everybody thought Sydney were good to win, and Melbourne actually got up and won that game. In the Draft Stars big contest there, we had William, who's been on an absolute heater in the DFS community. Had a lovely side, and obviously I might have to give the old tip of the cap. I don't have a cap on tonight, but the tip of the cap of your take last week with Max Gawn. What do you think about that?
Big Maxi, yeah. No, I couldn't believe he was 34% owned. That was unreal. I suppose everyone was on Prusy Bear, and I don't know about Prusy. He's a big lad, but I don't know how much coordination's going on there. But Max, didn't he just dominate those hitouts?
He did dominate, and he had a lovely 125 score. And one of my sneaky players, I didn't actually get to mention him. I actually have him in season-long fantasies. Harry Cunningham pumping out a 128, which was very good to see at low ownership as well. So well done to William for picking him and taking out the chocolates on Thursday night. Then we moved on to Friday, where we had Pierce 97 just taking down the big Friday slate over JK. We talked about the pie stack, and hopefully Pierce was listening to us, because his pie stack got up at the end with a lovely score of 853.
Yeah, no, he probably wouldn't have, because I think we went down when we were talking pie stack. You told me to get back to Hobart to the proper NBN, so we didn't lose your hot takes this week.
I think we kept that between the two of us in the end, because, yes, we had a lovely chat about pie stack, and then, Gold Coast didn't pull through for you, didn't it?
No, it didn't help us, though, did it? Good on Pierce. That's well put together team. Trav Varco, 89. Jeez, blue moon, that one. But, just knocked off your mate, Jay. I'm sure he'll get over it, Jay. He's probably got more on the go.
Oh, he does have more on the go. But well done to old Pierce 97. Great work taken out Friday night. And then on Saturday, we had a lovely big slate on Saturday where we actually had a tie again for William, just smashing the big slates here. He tied with Reich, number one, with a lovely side there. I'm going to focus on Reich one here. He actually had Vardy in the ruck, Zachy Merritt, which we might touch on later on, smashing out a 128. And hang on, is there Tom Rockcliffe? What did Tom Rockcliffe do last week, Hev?
Jeez, this lineup's all over your tips last week, Smatho. You got Shannon Hearn in there as well. That you did throw in a little sneaky for him. You got me on Tom Rockcliffe last week. Congratulations, well done. 2 thumbs up for you on that one.
Thank you. Thank you.
How about Port blowing that game to Richmond? Gee whiz.
Oh, yeah.
That's Port to a T, isn't it?
That is Port to a T.
Port to a T, but yeah, no.
Port to a T.
That's a good team.
So well done to William and Reich, number one, for the Saturday takedown. And then on Sunday, just a little 2-game slate, and one of the biggest scoring slates of the year with Pearl Davidon, 999 points, taking down the Sunday slate. Took home a cool $5,000 for his efforts, and he had an actually really good side with Jared Witts, 126 in the ruck, and Patrick Clips, my man crush, 163. And I didn't catch the Gold Coast players. I thought Fiorini would have a big game, but took Miller with 149. Sensational effort.
Yeah, he had 8 tackles in the first 10 minutes or something ridiculous, Took Miller. He's going to be in their next captain, isn't he? Patrick Cripps, he got 150 in the last 3 quarters. Imagine if he was awake in the first quarter, he could have gone the big 200, but he's a ripper of a player, Davidian. Brody 4, he was all over it again there. So he had 4 teams in the top 10. Jay was in there a couple of times too. Big guns came to the 4 on Sunday. Time to move on. Time to get him this week, Smatho.
Time to get to him. Time to get him. But I have to go back to William. A sensational effort over the obviously from round 4 and over the season. So, mate, you get my 2 thumbs up. Well done. Keep at it. And Hef, I'm still waiting for your result.
Yeah, we might be waiting a while. Let's see how we go.
Wait a while. Fair enough. All right. Now, speaking of this week, let's get straight into this week's contests. And as we know, in the next couple of weeks, we're going to have a bit of footy overload with matches pretty much every day of the week up until around the end of round 6. So we've got to work really hard on these particular single slate and little small slates in the next couple of weeks. So make sure you check out the DFR website for all of our resources and our articles for all these slates coming up on the AFL season. So, and then as I said, any questions at all, you can always drop us a line at RankingsDFS on Twitter, on our Facebook, or you can always drop a line here at Smatho10 or at TM Heffernan. Our Twitter handles on the bottom there, as you can see. All right, Hef, let's set up Thursday night. We've got Brisbane playing Collingwood at the Gabba. The line is 9.5 points to Collingwood with a total of 171.5, which is pretty good. Draft Stars have released a $40,000 contest, with Moneyball also releasing a $8,000 single slate contest for the matchup. Dane Beams in team news is back for Collingwood. He's back to face his old side with Chris Mayne, who's had a really serious back injury. He'll be out for a couple, trying to monitor his health there. And Brisbane are actually unchanged for the Thursday night clash. Just to set it up here for you, Hef, Collingwood in the season date are now ranked number 1 for points for and number 1 for points against. So they're scoring a lot of points and they're not letting oppositions score fantasy points in return. Brisbane are actually ranked number 3 for points scored and 7 for points scored against, although they did have a low 14th rank last week for the Bombers, who were pretty good last week, I'll guess. So Jesse put up his article on the DFR website earlier in the week, so make sure you do check out his preview. So, Hef, as always, let's start with the rucks, and obviously a big ruck in Brodie Gundy is up against big Stefan Martin and the Big O. But as you might talk about, we don't actually have but the Big O choosing the rucks this week.
No, Big O's just a Ford. So that makes things a little bit interesting. Jesse's article is really good this week. He really gets into the rucks. Long story short, Lions very hard to score against in the ruck this year. Numbers might be a a bit skewed because they played a few teams with the 2 ruck combos. But even still, they shut down Goldstein. They kept him in the 60s. Bell Chambers, they totally just wiped him last week. He got 30 odd, although Bell Chambers, he's a bit up and down. So Brody Grundy coming off 150. We were all over him last week until we dropped out. It's not going to be as easy pickings this week for Brody Grundy. But on the flip side, Brody Grundy doesn't give up points either. So this just made me totally spew up looking at the rucks. We can't play Big O in the rucks. He's only a forward. So if we don't want to spend up on Steph Martin, who's looking older and older every game, or Brody, we've got to look at either Mason Cox, which is it's a bit disgusting, Mason Cox, and Gordon Rufford, who he came from nowhere in that game against Richmond and scored about 100, and then he went back to his old fullback best in all the other games. So, I don't know about the rucks. This is the worst game I've seen for the year, trying to pick a ruck. I'm just going to play a mix of all of them because I don't really have a strong opinion with any of them.
Yeah, I think that's a fair enough call there. There's no real one must look in play. Like Grundy is very expensive. Stefan is just your plotter at the moment. And yeah, so look, wherever you pick, hopefully it comes right for you. Now, as always, we've got
sorry to butt in. He didn't even start in the ruck. I think they started with Big O last week against the Bombers. So yeah, paying $12K for a guy who's not even starting the ruck, that's tough times as well. So to spread them around, we'll try and get an edge somewhere else.
Fair enough. Now, since ruck is a bit of a handful, the midfields are actually a bit of a handful as well. You know, every time that we play a Collingwood game, we've got a lot of studs in the midfield. They're at a very high salary. Trying picking one or at least two is going to be very hard work. Can you lead us in some sort of direction here, Hef, especially with Collingwood? And obviously you got Lachie Neale and for the Brisbane.
Yeah, he's been going berserk, Lachie Neale, hasn't he? They did bring in Greenwood. That's one thing to note, the Pies. So, well, you just expect Lachie Neale just to run free. Last year, Buckley, obviously, he didn't care about Tom Mitchell. He said he could have 50 touches. It didn't matter. So, yeah, it's on a plate for Lachie Neale. They're not going to worry about him. What I do want to worry about is Mitch Robinson. Could we get a tag out of Mitch Robinson this week, Smatho?
Oh, okay. Here you go. Tagging Mitch Robbo. I reckon he might actually go to Dane Beams. The narrative, the prodigal son back to Brisbane, but he went back to Collingwood, and you're just going to say, mate, why are you back? I'm going to tag you for the whole 4 quarters of this game.
Yeah, there's been a fair bit in the media. Robbo doesn't want him to shake their hand. Robbo. Sorry, that's Mark Robinson. Mitch Robinson, I reckon let's just hope he goes and bashes up Dave Beams, make it a bit interesting. He's just a little bit unhinged, Robbo. Beamsy's obviously a little bit touchy. There's a few sort of rumours going on and what happened when he left the Lions last year. I reckon they're going to make life hard for him. Taylor Adams coming back has been massive for fantasy purposes. He really stood up last week against the Dogs when they were a bit up and down, the Pies team, and it took them a while to get rid of the Dogs. You gave us the player out stats last week on Nathan Fyfe. Smatho, I've got one for you this week.
Yes.
Adam Treloar scores 37 points a game more when Taylor Adams isn't in the team.
That's huge.
That's massive, isn't it? So
that is massive.
That seems like a good reason to fade Adam Treloar while Tay Adams is around. Obviously, Pendle's side bottom's been average this year. Yeah, Maine was taking a lot of ball, actually. He's not going to be there. I assume Beams is going to get a bit of his ball back. Maybe Tay Adams.
Tay Adams, fair enough.
He can't play anywhere else, Tay Adams. They realise he can't play half back because he can't kick, and so they just have to sort of leave him in the middle and they spread everyone else around. So maybe he's the man that we've got to target.
Fair enough. All right, let's talk about the forwards then. If you look at the current form of both forwards for both Brisbane and Collingwood, there's not really many high-scoring forwards in this particular matchup, and that's reflected in the salaries. Obviously, we want to fit these studs in the midfield. I've got to try and pick the bones out of here, these forwards. Is there any fun at all, Hef?
Again, Jesse's article is good to read here. I sort of picked up that the Lions while they've been good this year and they've been very restrictive, they have given up points to forwards. Collingwood got a range of forward cheaper options. You got De Goey's not totally cheap; he's still 11K or something. Stephenson, Brody, Myercheck dropped a heap of marks last week. He could have actually gone really big against the Bulldogs. Jamie Elliott didn't get much of a sniff until late in the game, and he sort of picked up his scores. But they're all pretty cheap guys, and they get a pretty good matchup against the Lions, I think. Roll a few cheap pie forwards through there is probably a go. The Lions, they have similar sort of no-name forwards. Like, how could you trust Hipwood? Rayner got a corky and hasn't been the same since. Charlie Cameron is flashy, but flashy doesn't really win your DFS. There's not much on offer. So maybe those pies forwards are the guys to go after.
I did notice Lincoln McCarthy took a really nice mark last week. So that could be my little sneaky for DFS play. You know, a bit of confidence there from taking some hangers, and hopefully he can rove around and kick some snags and obviously get a nice 60, 70, 80 point score for that particular contest. Now, I'm actually interested in the defenders here because Collingwood do love playing that chip around mark at the back there, and Draft Stars have kind of raised their salaries for your Cripps and your Howells and your Maynards, etc. Could be a bit of a contrarian play, ignoring the stud midfielders and going for these defenders who can rack them up pretty quick. Would that be a good take there, Hef?
Well, it's hard to forget that game against Richmond, isn't it, when they were just chipping around ad nauseum. One angle you can take there is if you do want to play a couple of pies backs, you can throw Jordan Roughead into the rucks, and that'll give you 3 of them. Then maybe someone like Aishi, as bad as he is, he's playing his old team. He's got backs. Pretty sure he's a back centre. You could try and maybe fit 4 of those backs and hope they go in full-on chippy mode. Just look at the numbers. It almost says to lean against picking backs against the pies. So you've also got the option of playing the Lions. Daniel Rich has been really good this season. Hodgie's getting quite cheap now at 9K, and this might be the sort of game he gets himself out of bed for. Witherden's always got that high ceiling. Yeah, there's a fair few different angles you can take with the back, so you can play around there, I think. Yeah,
it's going to be an interesting kind of game tomorrow because, look, it's a short line. You know, Brisbane are going to be making a good game of it. So yeah, I'm actually quite excited for this particular game and seeing the particular lineups that all of our DFS community will show tomorrow. So again, check out the resources on the DFR website if you need a bit of hand with your lineups tomorrow. Let's push on to Good Friday. We actually got a couple of games on Friday. So Draft Stars have put on a couple more big single slate contests, and there's a small, I think, 5K for the 2 games itself. Let's start with North Melbourne versus Essendon. Essendon with a good win last week have now a 10.5 line against the Kangas. High total, 177.5 under the roof here at Marvel. And Draft Stars have put up a $30,000 contest with Moneyball with $8,000. Obviously, the teams will come out tomorrow. There has been a bit of talk that David Zacharakis probably will get up, but he had a nasty gash on his knee, so they might actually get infected. So keep an eye on that. Luke McDonald is suspended for the Kangas and couldn't get up at the tribunal. Very, very similar teams in terms of the fantasy point stats at the moment. Both had really good performances in round 4 with a strong 1660 point performance. Salaries are very balanced for the actual contest itself, so there could be some really contrarian, funky lineups going on for this particular contest. Hef, let's break this down again. Let's start with the rucks, and as you can probably see straight away, our mate Zach Clark is still at the bare minimum on Draft Stars.
He's a big Neanderthal, Zach Clark, isn't he? He just runs around. He's sort of just pointing. He's doing a lot of pointing and moving and not a lot of doing, Zach Clark.
No.
5,500. He's very cheap. Both those bomber rucks are just going awfully. Bill Chambers, we just mentioned he got 30-odd against Brisbane last week. But Goldstein, as good as Goldstein has been over the years, the last year or two, he's been a really nice, sneaky option to go against. So he's 4th. He gives up the 4th most points in the comp this year to opposition ruckman. So while as hopeless as Zach is, 5,500, like surely he's got a couple of 40s. If he just sneak up to 50, that does give you a lot of money to spend up on all these sort of 10K plus guys. So I don't mind playing a bit of Zach and closing my eyes and hope for the best. Yeah, these rucks just no good at all.
No good.
No.
It's bizarre when you think a 30-point performance from Zach Clark is a disaster, and then 50 points is a win.
It is. Bill James is going to be hard to score against. That's why I sort of don't really want to just dive into Goldstein either. And I don't think Goldstein's quite at his best anymore. And Bill James is very hit and miss, but when he's on, he's a big body and he's sort of hard to deal with. So another of these games, just spread it and hope, I think.
Spread it and hope. Fair enough. Now, in the mids, we had a lovely bounce-back game here from the Essendon mids last week, and that was headlined by my boy, Roger Ramjet, I like to call him, or Zachy Merritt. He went very big way last week. Do we just pick Merritt as my first pick in the mids and set and forget, or should we be looking the ownership, get away from ownership and looking for something else?
I know you're going to set him in. I don't know why you're even asking me, Matho, but he's very highly owned all the time, Sarah. Actually, he's a very popular guy, but like, there's no tagger there from North, is there? I don't think Trent Jamont maybe, but he seems pretty happy just chipping around and getting his own ball. So anytime there's not a tagger on the horizon, I think Merritt just stands out as a great option. Look back at the teams North have played. Lockie Neal had 146 against them. Jager had 132. 4 Freo mids turned against them first game of the year. So there's no reason Merritt won't go big. So, yeah, lock him in, Matho.
Lock him in. Very good. Any other mids you're looking at? Possibly a bit of Shawnee Higgins to go with Merritt. There's a nice correlation there.
I love Shaun Higgins as a footballer, and he's one of the most underrated players in the comp. He gets a fair bit of attention, actually, and he's been able to work through tags pretty well lately, so he never really throws in that bad one. He hasn't gone under 95 all year. Last week, I was getting all these messages saying he's broken his bloody jaw from some collision he had, but no, he was straight back out there killing them again. 14K, I love Shaun Higgins. I would have a fair bit of him, I'd imagine. Yep,
good call. Now, the first thing I noticed with the forwards for this particular matchup was that Devon Smith's salary has dropped from a pretty high start of the year. It was around the 16, 17K. Now it's down to just a bit over 13.2. Obviously, with forward eligibility, we'll be considering a bit of Devon Smith with his, potential ceiling game in a high pressure Cook matchup at Marvel. Could be a lot of tackle stats. Would you think?
Could be. Yeah. You have a few favourite Essendon players for a bloke that hates Essendon, Matho. What's going on?
I hate Essendon, but you got to play them, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think Dylan Shield coming in, his old GWS mate, that seems to have impacted on Devon Smith. Doesn't get as much time around the ball. His scores, he's obviously not going as well as last year. He's still going all right, but maybe that just takes his ceiling out of play this year. Like, can he go much higher than 100? 100's all right at 13K, but I'm not really going out of my way to play too much Devon Smith just yet until sort of proven otherwise, I think.
All right, fair enough. Yeah, nice little take there, just to avoid old Devon until he gets too cheap, I think. And obviously, if the defence here, last week I caught the game versus Brisbane, and poor old Sard was stuck in the goal square. So, do we look at a little bounce back game, back off half back with his carry and run and racking up some possessions down the defence there for the old Sardi?
Yeah, I don't think the Kangas would do the same thing. They got Ben Brown in that forward 50, just patrolling traffic. You know what I think of Brad Scott. I don't think he'd be quite in his playbook to come up with something like that. Yeah, that sort of opens up a bounce back option for Sard. Kangaroos give up points to the backs this year, so maybe go with a couple of bombers back. That would be a solid option. Quite like the price still on Jordan Ridley. He's still pretty. He's not that well known yet. A few of the fantasy guys are into him, but he's nicely priced. You could play. I'd probably prefer him than the Sard around that $8,000 mark. But you can play both of them. Put them both in. Gives you some money to pump those midfielders, especially if you're playing Zach Clark as well. All of a sudden you got some pretty ordinary names in your lineup, but you should have some pretty good. You can play Dev Smith then, Smatho, if you do that.
All right, okay. I'll certainly look into that. Now, there's a second game on Good Friday over in Perth where the Eagles will be playing Port Adelaide. Eagles have got a lovely start here. 27.5 is the line at the moment with only at 156.5. Probably the reason that is there's some forecast bad weather for Perth on Good Friday. So just keep an eye on that, especially for our punters out here who like to play the over and under on the line there. So just keep an eye on that line there. If it's too high for you, don't be afraid to go on the under. Draft Stars $20,000 contest for this particular matchup. I reckon they'll field pretty quick. Moneyball has a 5K contest as well. In team news, looks like Lewis Jetta is possibly returning for Josh Rotham, who actually was pretty good last week after coming in pretty late. No significant news at Port until it dropped late tonight, that I've forgotten his name now. Help me, Hef.
Moddy.
Yes, yeah, he's gone. He's gone back to the sample. So the Port rookies.
You're right. No,
so the Port
model from this year.
No significant news. Okay, let's call that. It just means in Supercoach AFL fantasy that we keep our rookies, our Dersmers and our Rosies are still on our sides, which is pretty good. Yep. Let's talk about rucks, and all of a sudden I'm looking at the contest and we've got double rucks for both teams.
Double rucks.
This is more of the same here.
I'm going to jump in before we get into the rucks.
All right, fair enough. Go ahead.
Because I've been talking up Eagles every week on here, and I don't want to get like a broken record. So this week I'm not talking them up. There's one thing that scares me about the Eagles, and it's the rain. It's their kryptonite. As far as I'm concerned, their game plan of chipping the ball around and not making any mistakes, hold on to the ball. That's a bit harder to do when it's slippery. Round 1 against Brisbane, it was slippery and it all sort of came undone. They went a bit tall. They played Brander and a few other tall guys, and which they've sort of cut back a bit now with Cripps coming into the team. But they lost the slippery conditions. Last year they snuck by Collingwood in the finals, slippery conditions. I just think it doesn't really suit their game plan, and it removes the advantage they have with those big gun tools like Kennedy, Darling, McGovern, Barrass. It just sort of reduces the amount of the effectiveness they have in the air. So 27.5 line, staunch West Coast man, I'd prefer to be on Port Adelaide side on that.
Oh, geez. Let me open up my mobile phone and go get it on the under and Port at the line. In the little sneaky double up. I like it, Hef. I like it. I'll have to come back next week and see how that went. As I said, I was just spewing up about the double ruck situation, and obviously the theme of the night is rucks are no good this week. Tell me, is there any shining lights in these rucks?
Yeah, they're both very hard to score against in terms of the rucks of these teams. They both run the Bash Brothers. Lyson's going to be really pumped up because he's going back. Well, he's home now in Adelaide, but he's going back to where he won a flag. So he's a pretty physical guy. I'm sure he'll be trying to clean up a few guys, Lyson. But he'll get himself up for this match. Tom Hickey somehow pulls out a game at Optus, even when he was playing at St Kilda. His best game was over there in WA when he towed up Natanui somehow. So they're the two blokes I'd sort of lean to. And as much as I don't really want to play either of them, the fact that it might be really wet, that always boosts the amount of stoppages in a game. If it's going to be really wet and you think there might be a lot of stoppages, you can play Hickey and Lycett together. And just
a little bit of double. Yeah, look, the old double stack. The old double stack option, yes. That makes me feel a little bit better, actually. I mean, you got four on the plate there, and you can play two of them. It's actually a good idea. All right, let's talk about the big mids then. Obviously, it's the who's who again for this particular matchup. You've got Travis Boak and Tommy Rockcliffe are going bananas in fantasy sports scoring this year, and then obviously we've got our Gaffs and our Shoeys and Sheeds. They're going to be again, they're going to be highly priced. It's going to be hard squeezing a couple into here. Who if it does rain, is there any wet weather specialists? Are you thinking?
Oh, yeah, there is. In terms of tackles, there's a lot of blokes here who love to tackle. Boak, he's had about 25 tackles this year. He's back in the guts. He stands out, obviously, as one who loves to tackle. Ebert's up forward, but he does love to tackle. Rocky loves tackling to pad his stats. Redden is a massive known tackler, and wet conditions definitely suits him. There's been plenty of talk about Sheed's numbers this week now that Gaff's back in the team. Spending a lot of time forward. Wet weather isn't going to suit Sheed at all. His tackle numbers are just awful this year.
Yep.
Shuey will be in there. Yo will be in there. Sammy Pale Pepper, he's hopeless, but he is a total wet tracker, so that's going to suit him. He's going to bash and crash with no finesse, so he's about 9K, so he's probably playable if it's wet. Only thing you got to think about is Hutchings. Who do we think Hutchings go to for Port Adelaide?
The tag alert. He won't go to Wines. No. But it could be Rocky. Rocky doesn't like a tag. Yeah. But it depends on the conditions. If it's just a little scrum fest or a maul fest and everyone's tackling each other, then that doesn't really be significant. Yeah. But I suggest getting on the DFR website and look at historical data for both teams and just look who's had some high tackle stats and just say, hey, look, this guy's good tackle numbers for a forward or good tackle numbers for a defence, then plug him in. But just keep an eye on the weather. It is a late game on Friday. We've got nothing else to do on a Good Friday, so no issues in terms of doing a bit of research for this particular matchup.
They're racing at Lonnie on Friday. Don't worry about that, Smatho. We've got a bit to do, but I reckon Hutchings might go to Robbie Gray, actually. Last week they sent him to Walters. I think everyone thought he was going to go to Brad Hill, but he went to Walters a fair bit. Robbie Gray plays that similar role, so yeah, maybe he'll go to the class guy in Robbie Gray, which I think that would put Robbie out of commission, especially if it was a bit slippery as well.
All right, so with Robbie Gray out of commission, we've already got another guy who's kind of been out of commission as well, which is the old Hoff. What's happened to the Hoff this year? He had a great first round, and he's going to be going on a lovely, lovely season of fantasy point scoring, but he's just hit the wall. What's happening here, Hef?
Yeah, he did kick 5 in the first week, so I think that wallpapered over the cracks a bit for the Hoff. I don't think he's going to come good anytime soon. That he's not going to get much ruck time. A possible slippery deck against the Eagles. Their backs are very strong. I'm waiting another week on the Hoff, I think.
Okay, fair enough. So he's got a high salary, 13K. I think is a good fade for this particular matchup. All right, let's get on to Saturday. Saturday's got a lovely little 3-game slate. Giants and Dockers, Winds and Saints, and Tigers and Swans. The DS have put up a $40,000 contest, $5,000 on Moneyball. Let's just kind of keep it nice and tight for this particular slate because obviously we don't have any teams yet. So who do you think your studs are for this particular Saturday slate?
Straight away, I'm looking at those 3 games. I'm thinking the Giants just sort of stand out. If you're looking to stack and you're looking to pay up for some studs, you've got blokes like Cornelio, 14,000. Torino's the 13,000s. I know we sort of talked about the impact that Kelly coming back and Ward coming back last week in Geelong. Well, Ward's gone again now anyway. I think it's going to be very popular, these giant stacks, and you can only play 4 of them in the same team at once, but I think they're going to be key men to look at on Saturday. Outside of them, Jakey Lloyd's gone 120 plus every game this year, and now he's coming up against the Tigers, who have given up most points to backs of any team in the comp. So expect him to chip around in the back line as he does. Harry Cunningham, your man, Stevie J lookalike. He'll probably chip around with him, so maybe that's a little angle to take. They're my favourite studs on Saturday.
Yeah, no, I have to agree with you. You did talk about last week with Ward coming back in that we might dissipate the fantasy points around, but now he's gone for the season. We're back to your main hitters there for GWS. All right, so we've got to be stacks here with GWS. I need some value here for where we're looking at on Saturday.
I'm not seeing any obvious value to start with, so we'll have a look at the teams and see what comes through. There is one guy from GWS, Jackson Haitley, rookie. He's been getting good numbers in the NEFL like everyone in the world does, but he's only 5K. If he gets a run, it does take one of your 4-man stack spots, but 5K, especially if it turns into a bit of a bit of a bath against Freo. He's definitely capable. He's played a lot of senior footy last year, actually, over in South Australia. So 5K, he stands out as some value if he does get in the team to replace Ward.
We'll keep an eye on teams come out Thursday night, and if there's any potential 5-6K players, I reckon you should be seriously considering plugging them in to get these big studs in on Saturday. A little 2-game slate on Sunday. It's the Bulldogs versus the Blues and the Crows versus the Suns. 30,000 on DS for this particular matchup. We had a little 2-game slate last week, and I was very curious in terms of what kind of lineups were built because of the 5-player rule. Is there anything about this particular game or slate, Hef, that we should be attacking? Should we stack one game, or should we just concentrate on one team and just build around that? And how can you go contrarian on a 2-game slate?
Yeah, so Davidian won. He had a pretty balanced lineup, didn't he, of all 4 games last week. I don't like one of these games over the other in terms of doing a game stack. I think the obvious teams to target are the Bulldogs because the Blues just give up a stack of points, and the Bulldogs are well known for flicking it around amongst their midfielders. So can't go wrong playing a heap of those Bulldogs. Crows are under the pump. They're going shocking, the Crows. They were awful against North Melbourne. What a great spot to bounce back at home against the Suns. So assume that their midfield probably starts racking up as well. They're the 2 teams I want to attack stacking-wise. If you want to be contrarian, I don't think you need to go 2 out there, but you want to make sure you've got at least a couple of guys who are going to be reasonably low-owned to give yourself a bit of separation on the rest of the field.
Excellent. Well, good advice there for you, Hef. Now, obviously, Easter Monday, is a game between the Geelong Cats and Hawthorn. 50K there on DS. Look, it is pretty far away, so we won't go into detail that particular matchup, but also just keep an eye on our DFR website for all the previews of that particular game. Let's move on to the show. That's the AFL done for round 5. So obviously exciting DFS contest. The talk of the town last week was the Masters contest on DraftStars. Hef, how'd you go? Did you get any action there on the old DS golf last week?
No, I was nowhere to be seen on the golf, Smatho. Although a noob like me, it would have been a good result for me, Tiger Woods winning, because he would have been one of the few players I actually knew. I can't believe how bad his hair is. Like, what's going on there? A bloke who's gone through as many as he has, Tiger, that hair, he's got to do something about that hair.
He's in his 40s, mate. He's in his 40s. Give him some slack. Time
comes quick, doesn't it? Life comes at you fast. But, yeah, what a great story. Tiger, good on him.
Good on him. Look, I didn't really mention it on the DFS down on the show last week, but in the podcast, I was pretty bullish on a gentleman called Brooks Koepka, and obviously he was on top of the leaderboard for a majority of the tournament, and just to see him come tied second was a great achievement in itself, but didn't quite get the chocolates. In terms of the DFS itself, it was a really good sweat for all players concerned. We did lose a couple early in Justin Rose, and which is, I think, Agie's kind of favourite. He's kind of spewing about that. But and Paul Casey, who had an absolute mare, so I was kind of knocked out of the main ones. But it was really good putting some good lineups together. JK's strategy of Stars and Scrubs came through with the goods. But let's move on. That's last week. But this week, the PGA Tour rolls on, and we go to Harbour Town for the RCB Heritage Tournament. DraftStars have put up a $10,000 contest earlier today after me begging on my knees to quickly put it up for the show. So they came through with the goods. Before we talk about that, I want to talk about Matty Lee's actual win as well. I've just saw it flashed up on the screen, his actual lineup. He actually had a really nice lineup in the end. He came through with the top 5 guys. Good. So this week, again, you want to be trying to find the guys who are going to win the tournament and then guys who are going to make the cut with a bit of value for us, all right? So do check out my article on the DFR website.
Give us one, Smatho.
DJ, give us one. All right. Dustin Johnson is also the Vegas odds-on favourite. I've written on my article today that anyone who was in contention for the Masters usually has a bit of a hangover, and doesn't go too well the next tournament. And that's come from rotogrinders.com as well. So this is not a theory. It's actually backed up with a bit of better facts as well. So look for guys who went okay in the Masters or didn't shoot pretty well, but be looking to bounce back in a big way. So my low-owned guy, Mark Leishman from Australia.
Oh, nice.
Poor tournament. Little Aussie, yeah. Had a poor tournament, especially Saturday and Sunday. But he loves the wind. Growing up in Melbourne, windy courses, he's on record saying he loves doing little knockdown shots. So he's going to be a low-owned guy on DraftKings. Draft Stars, he might be a little bit more owned, but Mark Leishman is my little smoky this week. Beautiful. Now, with the wind, keep an eye on the weather. There could be suspension of play. There's a bit of talk on Twitter around the DFS community that you have to look at the tee time. So guys who tee off late on a Thursday get the tee off early on a Friday. And what Draft Stars do actually put the little tee times on the salaries for the particular player. So anything that earlier means they're going to be playing later on Friday. All right, so it's a little schmatho tip there for you.
Excellent little tip, that one, Smatho.
Little tip, all right. So keep an eye on that on Hef. Now, let's move on to the DFS darling of the NRL scene. I have to give out 2 shout-outs to start with. Now, this guy doesn't actually play DFS. He actually plays NRL, and I have to give a little nice good shout-out to the retiring Greg Inglis from the Rabbitohs. Absolute Queensland Maroons legend, Australian legend of the rugby league scene. Hef, as I bake in his glory of his career, do you have any fond memories of GI?
Inglis. I'll be honest, the only Inglis I really know is the horse sales. So my fondest memory is I was there when Redute's Choice went through the ring. That's about all I've got on.
Did you put your paddle up for a bid for your Reduced Choice?
I sort of scratched my nose and my old man clipped me over the back of the head in case we bought one. But you're going to have to run us through some memories about Greg Inglis, I think, Smatho, in your Taruna Penguins glory.
Yes, no. Greg Inglis was an exceptional player. There was two memories that stand out for me. The first one, he was actually went back in the Melbourne Storm and he was playing at 5'8". And he's run a little sideways dink, and he saw Jamie Soward playing for the Dragons sitting out there on the standers in the wing, and he just decided to steamroll him, and he literally got airborne and he went flying. So if you had never seen that before, get on YouTube and just type in Greg Inglis rolls Jamie Soward. That was one of my first memories of Greg Inglis thinking, this guy's an absolute weapon. And then we all remember the South's grand final victory where he broke out late in the game, scored the try, did the old goanna dance, which has become synonymous now with Greg Inglis. So we're going to miss him doing that. Now, for all us AFL blokes, you think, what the hell is Smatho on about? It's pretty much the equivalent of Wayne Carey retiring. Okay. Very similar kind of build, and I think I have to say his personal life has also suffered a little bit later in his career. If you look up Greg Inglis's kind of rap sheet, you can understand why it's being compared. So, well done, GI. We'll miss you, mate. And then, but what I'm not really missing at the moment is our DFR contributor for NRL, old Corey France. Frenchie has just been absolute going gangbusters on the NRL. We pumped him up last week and we were trying to drag him down after his win in round 4. Comes out round 5 and takes down another Broncos game. It's unbelievable, Hef.
Well, I actually thought that, Twitter's timeline is just stuff these days. You don't know what tweet's coming from where. I actually thought I was reading on Twitter his last week's result where he took top 2. He took top 2 again.
He did.
So Mark Lacroix is my favourite Frenchman of all time, but this bloke is getting pretty close now, Frenchie. He's just killing NRL and he's just putting it all out there. What a machine. What a machine.
Like, I am following his projections. I am actually doing quite well using his projections and advice on the DFR website. And you just saw the next article for the Thursday night matchup between the Panthers and the Sharkies is now live on the DFR website. So you've got no excuses for the next 24 hours to get some NRL teams in there for us as well. So big show this week, big edition. And it looks like we've got through to the end without any hiccups, Hef. Would you agree?
Unbelievable. I told you last week we'd be right, Smatho. Now we're back on the good old Tassie NBN. We're sweet. I'm exhausted, though.
We are sweet.
I'm going to go and get into the. I'm going to go into these Collingwood midfielders and try and work out what the hell I'm going to do. So,
If you think you're exhausted now, wait until next week when we've got pretty much a game every night apart from Tuesday next week.
Yeah, it's a huge week. So stay in for the long haul. The best thing is if you get one wrong, everyone starts on 0 the next day.
Correct. Look, we'll be back next Wednesday night with a huge Anzac Day preview. Tuesday. Well, even better Tuesday. Let's talk Tuesday night. Well, Tuesday night there's obviously some footy going on, but we'll be back on for a massive show next week. So keep an eye on our Twitter feeds, our Facebook, and the DFR website for our next show. Hef, any final thoughts before we wrap it up tonight?
No, I'm going to jump on YouTube and have a look at Greg Inglis. And I want to see a goanna dance from you next week, Smatho, just to lead into the show. Get a new top on, ditch the baby blue, and lead us in with a little goanna. That's what I'm looking for. I'll give you two thumbs up.
Fair enough. I'll make a dick of myself next week. Thanks, Hef. Excellent. Big show, long show tonight, but as a jam-packed with DFS content. And we didn't even touch on the NBA, which in the playoffs at the moment, they're going pretty crazy as well. Warriors blowing a 31-point lead. Yeah. How amazing was that?
Hard time today. Go and watch him just put the number on Fat Felton. Magnificent.
It's just with too much sports belly enough, as they say. So thanks again for watching the show, and we'll catch you on the next episode of the DFS Down Under show. Thanks for watching.
Thanks, Smatho.